All right, so Ronan here for the Ronan Running Rabbit. And, you know, I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder for companies that take a fantasy franchise or a historical, medieval setting, specifically fantasy and medieval settings where you have a medieval style setting and then you inject modern sensibilities and politics into it. Especially if it's historical, you best not be doing that. You best not be having some craziness or something else. It should be pretty cut and dry what you're looking at, what you're hoping to do, and it should be pretty straightforward. It shouldn't be anything crazy. But so many people want to shoehorn in their politics when back then that wouldn't have been even. I mean, yeah, slavery is bad, but you know what happened back in the medieval times? Slavery. I've been reading. I actually read Ivanhoe recently. Fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And then on top of that, I started reading Robin Hood and His Merry Men or something along those lines. And slaves come up. It's a thing back then. Yeah, it's gross, it's nasty, but if you don't look at it, if you can't look at the face of pain and suffering, then like what you have to be able to look at the thing, like the darkest parts of the world and the darkest parts of existence, to be able to fight those things. Because I mean, Lord have mercy. It's we need His mercy. And so that just don't be trying to be stupid with your modern politics and shoehorning in a weird relationship that would not have been kosher back then. I mean, ancient Athens, that's a different story altogether. But medieval France, nah, stop, guys. You're only hurting yourself, and you're really hurting your pocketbook. So if you're trying to make money, make it legit. Don't be stupid. All right. So the real issue is the fact that you've got people that are trying to go, well, this person doesn't have a gender, and I'm barely gonna open that can of worms and say no. Joan of Arc was a woman. That's about it. She wasn't some crazy. Yeah, she was impressive. She's a pretty good warrior, but I'm willing to bet that, you know what? Probably the best male soldier was able to beat her in a fight. She probably would have died. I think she was fairly protected. I think she actually had a strategic role more so than anything, which, I mean, good for her. Strategy is a hard thing to do. Y'all ever play like any RTS or really any sort of strategy game? They're hard. They ain't easy. But trying to shoehorn in modern politics, whether it's gender ideology or the LGBTQIA plus minus, I don't know, there's got plus minus divided by ampersand, octothorpe, whatever it is, it doesn't belong, especially in a medieval fantasy world. Yeah, you can kind of do, there's a bit more license with fantasy, but if you're trying to, have it be some sense of realism in a medieval fantasy world, I'm going to laugh at you every time if you're trying to shoehorn in politics, because it just looks stupid and it looks really petty and it looks really boring and it's just not exciting. You take away from the immersion of the story by doing that. And I mean, you look at Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, look at, I know what else they've, the Rings of Power. I won't even touch that with the 10-foot pole. It's like the Grinch. Ugh. But yeah, so just keep your modern sensibilities to yourself, especially if you're making something brilliant. If you want to make something brilliant, I mean, look at The Last Duel. Great movie. I really liked that movie. I should probably do movie and book reviews. I was thinking about that. I might do that. But it just does not belong. If you're like, oh, and she's actually a lesbian. It's like, well, is that historic? These are historical people. Is this historically accurate at all? No. I mean, I saw Gladiator 2 recently, and it had some parts where I was like, I don't know if I can suspend my disbelief that far. Granted, that movie didn't need to be made, but I have to say The water battle was really cool to see. Would have loved to be able to see that in person. Not the people dying, but the actual filling of the Coliseum. I guess they did that in the Globe Theater as well, if I'm not mistaken. They would fill and use different things. But that's beside the point. Just keep your identity politics out of my fantasy and out of my medieval fiction. It doesn't belong, especially historic fiction. It doesn't belong there. Yeah, keep it to yourself. All right, Ronan out.